love that song. Thanks for playing, Kurt. Hey, everybody. Thank you for being here with me, Deborah Kobylt, live. And on the phone with me today, our guest is Marc Treitler. He is author of the book, My Dad is an Alcoholic. What About Me? I love that title. It's very catchy. I think that's a brilliant title. And what motivated you to write this book?
Oh, good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Oh,
it
sure.
was pretty simple. I'm the dad, the alcoholic, and when I was lucky enough to finally get better 8 years ago, last week actually, 8 years ago last week, I realized.
I was going to say, wow, just last week, or it was 8 years ago last week?
My 8-year anniversary was last week.
Wow,
so
that's tough.
8 years, yes. Every day is a good day.
Can you walk me through your journey a little bit? In other words, when you're an alcoholic, how does that start? Do you feel like the addiction is always in you and you have that sip and then it triggers it? How does it work?
No, and that's part of the reason we wrote this book, because
Yeah.
those of us that have it in their genes need to be aware of what's happening. No, I was just your normal college student down there by you at UCLA, and started drinking in a fraternity like a lot of people do. Then that continued through law school and business school, which a lot of people do. And then it just sort of creeps up on you, and you go from social drinking to you find yourself drinking every night, whether it's with a different group of friends or then by yourself. But no, it sneaks up on you. Nobody plans to be an alcoholic or a drug addict, but it just happens, and if you're not aware, it's too late, which is really the reason we wrote this book.
What does sneaks up on you mean? In other words, you have a drink on a Saturday night, and then all of a sudden on Monday you want another drink, and then on Tuesday, yeah. What does it mean?
Yeah, it's exactly, and the disease is progressive in everybody that has it. So it just progresses, and what I mean by sneaks up on you is everybody drinks in a fraternity. 95% of people. So you just think you're fitting in, you're doing what everybody else does, and then really in law school, to be honest, and even some early lawyer years, everybody drinks. So you just think you're doing what everybody else does, but then you find yourself having a little bit more every night than your friends, or when you get home, you continue the drinking as your friends do, but it's all in the perspective of everybody else is doing it. This is what your social and business circle is.
Well, yeah, but for an alcoholic, are they thinking about their next drink? For example, I can have a drink, and to be honest, I hardly drink, and the reason is because people are always like, why aren't you drinking? I don't like the taste of alcohol. To me, it tastes like rubbing alcohol. It's horrible to me. But for someone who enjoys the taste and enjoys the feeling, are you saying you're someone who then is looking for that next hit? Is that what it's like?
Yeah, it turns from a want to a need.
Right.
So you might want to have a drink with your friends on a Friday night, but for me, the last 10 years of my drinking, it was I need to make sure we go out to dinner with a place with beer or wine, because I have to have a drink. And by the way, when I say a drink, it's a lot more than one. But yeah, it changes from something of convenience to you have to that night or that afternoon or even that morning as it progresses, and then it's just something you have to do. Like you have to have dinner tonight. The alcoholic that might be listening to the show knows, when they get off of work, they need to have, vodka or beer or wine somewhere in their system.
Do you find that you were sneaking it, so that your wife wouldn't notice?
Oh.
Were you running upstairs and doing it with the bedroom door closed? How did you get away with drinking like that?
Oh, yes, and I think she's listening, so God bless my wife for putting up with this. But, yes, unfortunately...
What's her name?
Rowena.
Hi, Rowena. Yes, God bless Rowena. That's tough on the family. So, and the fact that she stuck with you and through it, terrific woman. But what's that like? Did you hide it?
It progresses the same in everybody. Everybody ends up sneaking it, and everybody almost ends up using vodka because it smells less on your breath. So I had hiding spots. I usually waited till my kids and wife went to sleep before I would sneak it, but that'd already be after 3-4 beers at Dave Buster's or at a restaurant. So yeah, unfortunately, unless you stop it early, it definitely turns into sneaking, even around your wife or your drinking buddies, because you need more than them.
When did you hit bottom? Because the sneaking is bad enough, because if you have a conscience, you're going to feel guilty, right? So
oh yeah, but your disease Your disease is really good at talking your conscience into not worrying about things.
It's true. And the worst thing to do is judge someone who's going through something like this, because I really do believe in life we all go through stuff, whether it's addiction to alcohol or just something that plagues us. And what we need to do is we need people to support us and be there and not be judgmental, but we also need people to help get us through once we're ready to admit to what we're doing. So when did you hit rock bottom? How many years were you doing this?
I started drinking in college and stopped in my late 30s, so a good 15, 18 years, and it got worse every month, every year. My bottom, fortunately, wasn't what a lot of people have, where it's jail or divorce or institution. I knew I needed help, but saying that and doing that are two different things. Even for someone who's very successful, what they set their mind out to do. But mine was a little comment by my daughter that I talk about in the book. I took her to a daddy-daughter concert. I was really excited about it. It was one of those American Idol kids that she loved. And we went, and I think I had great seats, and we got back, and my wife asked my daughter, she said, "Leanna, how was the concert?" And her response was, "Daddy drank a lot."
Ooh.
Yeah.
Did you drive home? Wait a minute. Did you drive home?
That's a subject of argument with my wife and I. I think I had a limousine. She thinks I drove home. So
ask your daughter. Your daughter would remember. Was it a limo or did you drive?
I probably drove. There were concerts I did a limo, and absolutely shouldn't drive with any amount of alcohol. But that's what hit me, the guilt and of my daughter realizing, how much I drank. And to be frank, that wasn't even a lot of drinking. I mean, 3, 4, maybe 2 or 3 beers during a concert. I probably got home and, followed that with 8 more drinks throughout the night. But the fact that my kids recognized it, my kid says something, and it was obviously upsetting her, that's what worked for me and made me reach out for help. But, a lot of people, that wouldn't do it.
Clearly, the addiction component runs in families. You said it ran on your mom's side in particular, but both, really. Does it run also through your family, your daughter, anyone else in the family that you think might have this?
The science is very clear. It runs in your DNA. They've actually identified like the GABA, the genes and the GABA receptors, et cetera, that are affected by it. And someone that has alcoholism or addiction in their genes can be 3 to 4 times more likely to become an alcoholic than their peer or classmate. So it's clear, and 3 to 4 times more likely is very significant, which is why we wanted to arm those kids and those individuals with some information to have a fighting chance against the disease before it's too late.
You make an analogy to allergies. Can you explain that to me? You were talking about allergies and how it is relatable to addiction, alcohol addiction in your case.
Sure, yeah. The body reacts, the body of an alcoholic or someone that has it in their genes, they react differently than a normal person to alcohol and drugs. Your brain, there's MRIs and scans of brains. The brain actually, reacts twice as significantly as a normal person, which a lot of doctors call an allergy. So as we were trying to teach children about this, we realized that everybody knows a child with a peanut allergy, and I'm sure you do as well, Deborah, where someone's friend or somebody on a softball team or somebody on an airline flight has a peanut allergy. Everybody knows about it.
By the way, and why do they still hand out peanuts every time I'm on a plane? I'm thinking there's got to be one guy or girl in this plane with a peanut allergy. Did you ever think about that? Not to get off topic, but you did bring it up.
No, on flights now they'll actually say if someone reports it, they'll actually say there's a peanut allergy and they'll hand out pretzels. But you're right, most people don't report it, so I would tend to agree.
Anyway.
But on that note, why do they hand out alcohol? When the person sitting next to them might have an allergy to alcohol. So what we try to do is relate these children in the classroom that have a peanut allergy to someone like my son and daughter who have an allergy to alcohol, which we try to make relatable in the form of that cute little potato my son drew throughout the book, which potato makes vodka, obviously. So we try to say, why don't families talk about an allergy to alcohol where every family talks about an allergy to peanuts? So that was sort of the theme to make it relatable to middle school and high school kids.
I think a lot of people don't want to because they want to have their drink and they don't want to say that because maybe, in fact, they're hiding something. I brought this up to someone over the weekend and I said, do you talk to your kids about it? They're like, nah, they're going to be fine. And I thought, maybe not. Maybe you really should be talking to your kids about it because I know, my friend's husband likes to have a drink or two or three or four. And I thought, something going on there. He didn't even want to bring it up to his kids. His kids are middle school age because I don't want to put the idea in their head. And I just thought, I just didn't say anything, but I think, what do you think about that?
Your instincts are correct. That would be the wrong approach. And by the way, he might actually drink more than 4. If you think it's 4, it might be more. But even if it's
no doubt.
Not educating your kids about this is one of the worst things you can do. Then they're going to learn from their peers or from YouTube or Instagram. We advocate that parents take the lead in this and educate their children, whether or not you have a addiction gene or not. Educate the kids, model sober behavior. Start early. Give them somebody to talk to in the case of peer pressure for alcohol or drugs, whether it's you or an aunt or an uncle or a priest. And, the studies have backed up this theory. There was a big New York State study that showed for kids that had addiction or alcoholism in their genes, the one set that was just informed of the dangers in their body, that they were at a higher risk than others, they were 3 times less likely to become alcoholics than the other group.
Wow.
So just, and that's the tool that we tried to provide in this book. There's certainly other tools, but making sure, your kids are educated with or without addiction in their genes is what science and, common sense has shown to be the best path to avoid this.
It's good to get them young in the middle school, but I would imagine going to a college and getting the kids and saying, look, nobody has to stand up, nobody has to admit anything, but for all you guys and girls who go out on the weekends, do you sometimes feel like you might go out of control? Because if that's the case, I need you to listen. You don't have to tell me who you are, but you got to listen because I could save you years and possibly decades of trauma if you just maybe identify something early on. Do you ever tell them that?
You sound like my publicist who wants that to be our second book.
Okay.
For freshmen. So, it's a good thing. You're right. It's, freshmen and sophomores in college, I just think that's part of the normal drinking. I happened to be talking to somebody this weekend, and she was a freshman in college, and she slept with a trash can next to her bed because it was normal for her to get so drunk that she would throw up.
Okay, that's not normal to me. I remember being in college and everyone was going out. They came blasted. They couldn't go to school the next morning and go to their classes. And I remember thinking, again, I told you earlier, I'm not a drinker. And I would think, why are they doing that? They can't go to class. They're not going to study. They're going to fail. But I was kind of a serious student. That's a telltale sign to me. If you're sleeping with a trash can next to you, how attractive is that? I don't know, maybe to appeal to a girl and say, do you really think that's attractive? Do you think you look good to your fellow peers? I don't know.
Yeah.
Just saying.
And obviously this was a younger, attractive girl, and, being that drunk every night, there's a whole litany of dangers.
It's funny. My mom, her dad was an alcoholic, and as a little kid, if I even walked by a bottle of wine, it would be like, don't do that, it's bad for you. And I sometimes wonder if that's the reason why I don't drink, because even going near it was something that was very taboo in my house. And I grew up in an Italian household background, and usually, you have a little wine or whatever. We had nothing. So I often wonder if that was drilled in my head as a kid. She was afraid. Well, she was afraid. And I will tell you, my aunt, her sister, her older sister, had extreme alcoholism. I remember my mom used to have to go over and literally pick her up off the floor. It was really bad. So she must have been petrified that it was genetic and that one of us would get it. We didn't.
Well, you didn't, or you didn't activate it.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, one or the other.
You don't drink enough to activate it. So either way, it's good, but it sounds like those warnings were sort of the message that we're trying to give in this book. And by the way, I'm going to add you to my list of 10,000 people I've talked to about this book. We're about 90% of them have someone in their immediate family or extended family that was an alcoholic or drug addict or is today. So it's everywhere.
Add me to it, because I think it's our responsibility to help the next guy. What did I say earlier? We all have something. Mine may not be alcoholism. But everybody's got something that they're dealing with or struggling with, right? I mean, there's always something. So we got to sort of move it forward and try and help each other. Let me ask you this. I think you briefly also touched upon drugs as well. And what are your thoughts on the legalization of marijuana and that you can just have it now for recreational purposes? It pisses me off, by the way, there's my opinion.
Well, I was going to give you, I think it's horrible.
Yeah, I do too.
I think there was a deterrent factor, whether or not, the argument was, well, if they could buy alcohol. But sure, there are plenty of kids that would buy alcohol but not marijuana because they didn't want to get arrested. They didn't want to get drug tested.
Sorry, Mark, I'm in agreement with you, and not to interrupt you, but I feel so passionately about this. It's totally different. I mean, you've got alcohol that is, made in a confined environment in a factory, and you don't really know what's going on with the marijuana and how it's being laced or what's in it. And I don't know. I'm completely against it in every way. And I just think it promotes further drug use, don't you?
I think it's terrible. I absolutely agree. I think it's terrible. The kids doing something against the law is absolutely a deterrent.
Well, it's not against the law anymore, right? And in many states. So
that's going to make kids much more willing and able and eager to do it. And then, the argument that it's not a gateway drug, well, those people haven't been in rehabs like I have and seen people, start from smoking pot and doing it every day and then turning to stronger drugs. I don't think there's any doubt that using marijuana leads to other things.
I hope you get on that, Mark. Personally, I will help champion that because I think you're right. I think people don't realize that it leads to further drug use. Aside from the fact that it's bad for you, you're inhaling smoke and it's disgusting. It's awful for your lungs. No matter what, it does change the brain chemistry. And maybe as you're going through it, you're like, oh, not really, I'm fine. But you're not fine, and you're not going to be fine. And there's different doses of marijuana as well. So I actually think this is an enormous problem of the future. I really do.
I think it's terrible. We talk about it in our book. There's a couple chapters about prescription drugs and legal drugs and illegal drugs, but it's all your brain. It's all the same to your brain. It's legal, illegal, prescription, narcotics, alcohol. It affects the same part of your brain, and it takes you along that path to addiction. And if you have it in your genes, that path is very short.
How did you get off it?
I went to. Thankfully, I asked for help after my daughter said that to me, and a couple of days later, I put myself in a position where I had to ask for help, and I went to a traditional 30-day rehab, followed that up with outpatient, and did one of the AA programs, and have ever since.
And you stayed off ever since? That's amazing.
Oh yeah, there's no in between. There's no alcoholic that can have one or two beers. So it's unfortunately it doesn't work that way. It's either zero. Or, I wouldn't even be alive right now if I hadn't have stopped.
What do you do when you're at a party? That's got to be hard, just the smell of alcohol, right?
If you're really doing the program correctly, it isn't. Certainly I don't go to bars just to hang out, but there's plenty of business, my full-time job and social occasions that have alcohol. I have found personally that when people ask me why I'm not drinking, I tell them, and most of the time, and 95% of the time, they're proud. They're like, "Wow, I wish my brother would have gotten sober or would get sober. That's a great thing. I can't believe you're able to stay away for 8 years." So it's as long as you have the right intentions and you're at the party for the graduation, and it's not just a drinking game, then it's usually fine for most people. But you're right; some people need to stay away from it.
So someone is listening to this program, watching this program, and they believe that they are an alcoholic and not just a casual drinker, but they don't want to give it up. They're afraid to give it up. What do you say to them? Is there something they should do? I mean, even something organic, like putting on a pair of sneakers and going for a walk. I always tell my kids, I have 3 of them, I'm like, look, if something's really bothering you, they don't listen, but go put on your sneakers, go for a walk, bring a bottle of water, and bring a banana. And they're like, you always say that. But it's kind of true because you're getting a little potassium, good for your heart. The water's always good for your body. And if you're walking, I feel like that gives you some kind of chemical release, right? Like what do you, don't forget the banana. What do you tell people to try and get your mind off it if that's possible?
If you find yourself thinking about alcohol and having too many and you're repeating the cycle and you think you have a problem, put on your running shoes, walk to an AA meeting, and do what they tell you, and buy the book that you can read and change your life. And I don't work for AA. I just know it works. And if you have a drug problem, get on your running shoes and walk to an NA meeting, and listen to the 50 people in the room that have done it successfully. You can't do it on your own. There's no homeopathic cure for alcoholism. You need the support of others, and use one of the programs that have been around since the 1930s.
Your day job, you're a corporate attorney out of San Diego, correct?
I am, and
a very successful one. I know that. But the fact that you've taken this on with your book, My Dad is an Alcoholic, What About Me, I think is brilliant. I love when people want to sort of move it forward from their own experiences, because I really do believe that that's what it's all about. So I applaud you for doing this, and I'm glad I sort of sparked an interest with you and your publicist to do a second book, because I think this is very important. I really do. Any final words you can give us about this?
I would just say, if anybody knows children that have addiction or alcoholism in their genes, or just other children, you can go to our website, potatoallergy.com. We list some great resources, including our book. That's the proceeds go to charity to provide more kids the free copies of the book. And just do something, whether it's this $9.99, $10 step on Amazon to hand to your 12-year-old and have them read, or if you want to talk to them, just make sure you do something, because the alternative is when they're 35 and you're trying to get them into treatment and rehab, and that's much harder than talking to them to avoid it when they're 10.
And you do the speaking circuit as well, don't you? You go around and talk to kids?
My daughter and I just spoke to a middle school a couple of weeks ago. That was great. And by the way, I'm not sure if we mentioned it, but my daughter wrote half of the book, so it speaks to children her age.
How old is she? How old is Liana? Is that how you say her name, Liana?
Yeah, Liana. She's
Liana.
16. She wrote it when she was 13.
Wow, smart kid, very intuitive, especially that she came home and said, Dad did too much drinking at her concert. Imagine the impression that was making on her. Every sip that you took, she noticed it. Smart kid. Smart kid.
Model sober behavior for your kids. They look up to you, and if they see you, drinking every night, that's what they're going to learn.
Or anything, don't you think? Or really anything?
They model appropriate behavior. In this case, model sober behavior, but model good, communication skills with your wife and your spouse, and model coping skills. No violence or drugs or alcohol. Little kids look up to you.
Marc Treitler, My Dad is an Alcoholic, What About Me, is your book. Thank you so much for being here, and we hope to have you on again soon. Thank you.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Bye-bye. That was interesting. I enjoyed hearing about that. Everybody, thank you for being with us this week. We look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks for tuning in to Deborah Kobylt Live, and we'll see you then.